Hello everybody, welcome to our webinar. In this episode, as always, we're going to be working in 3ds Max, and we're going to create something that I hope is going to be at least interesting to you. Guys, what are going to be our elements that we're going to need? Well, first of all, a little bit of patience and a little bit of will to do something nice. So if you're going to be patient enough, we can also spend a little bit of time on creating this animation, but it all depends on how the webinar goes and how fast we can model this out, because this time we're going to be, as always, trying to go through the most basic and most easiest way of modeling. So that way we're going to be beginner friendly. So yet again, if anybody's a little bit more advanced and is going to need a bit, let's say, more challenge, well, I recommend you to watch this video on ×3 because we're going to take things slow. That is also why we're going to be working on a little bit easier models, because this time we're going to be doing the bare bones and bare minimum, just so the effect is nice and easy, so you can fill your portfolio with something as a beginner, and I'm hoping to see something like this done by you. Files that I'm going to be sharing with you are going to be very simple. So as always, we're going to be giving you some kind of PDF to work with. Maybe I'm going to also add the WG files. So CAD files are always welcome, I guess. But let's not hope for too much. I believe that this is going to be enough information for everybody to participate, and let's get started, shall we? For those of you that just joined in, my name is Michael and I'm a teacher for Vizacademy. I would also like to give you some information about our school. So Vizacademy is a rendering school that's going to teach you how to create photorealistic renders using 3ds Max and Corona Renderer. You can see our students' work on our Instagram, and there's quite a lot of them, to be honest, because our students are extremely talented. Everything we post, unless it's one of those videos, why are there 2 posts? Okay, I'm going to delete one. So if we're going to have any kind of images created by our students, we're going to be posting them. We don't post our work because I think it would be absolutely cheating, me posting my work to promote my training, because what is really going to be a good thing is to show what the result of our students are. So this way you're going to have a little bit of understanding what you're going to be dealing with. Okay, I'm not logged in. Anyway, what I want to say is all of those images were created by people like you. Most importantly, those were created by people that started from absolute zero with 3ds Max. We try to post as many images created by our students starting from beginner level as possible, because more than 70% of our students start with level 0, and they always deliver really amazing results. So see the available dates, because right now we're pretty much ending our recruitment for September, and to be honest, we're running out of spots. So if you want to grab one, do it now. On top of absolutely everything, I would like to give you information that right now our school is recognized as official let's say platform. That means that Autodesk will be granting our students, since this group, we're going for our new students, we're going to be able to give them the student's license, which is not only for 3ds Max, but it opens the plethora of options for Revit, AutoCAD, and lots more. So if you want to test out the student version of Autodesk software, which is really the full version but with limited licensing, this is something that you would like to do, because right now our students are going to get that. Okay, so this was the part where I needed to really tell you a little bit about ourselves. So you know me, my name is Michael, and I work with 3ds Max for a couple of years. A couple of years is a pretty understatement, because I'm working for approximately 18 years already, but give or take 3 years, because some of the years when I was just experimenting with 3ds Max, it doesn't really count as working, but I know it for a while. So I see that there's a few of you online today, so hello everybody. I can see that we've got Devon, some name that I cannot read, Vinicius, Azra, Abin, and welcome everybody. So, well, tell me a little bit more about yourself, where you're from, what do you do for a living, and let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to be exploring is obviously the floor plan, because we're going to be working with that, and we're going to be building our very simple yet somewhat complicated object from scratch. So how about we start with the very base, and this is going to be this outline for the floor, because what we need to consider is that we're going to be building this whole thing. So examining this, we also need to understand that there are some elements, details that are easy to add, but well, easier to miss even. Hello from Nigeria. Hello. Watched your last modeling run into a problem. I keep getting Corona render license not available. Any fix? So in that case, if you're running into that issue, I'm guessing it's the issue of 197. In that case, you need to type in start and start Chaos licensing server. That way, the licensing server is going to be online, and then you need to log into your account. If that doesn't happen, and if that doesn't help, unfortunately, you're going to have to contact the Corona support, because they kind of have this problem for approximately 2 months now, but they are very swift to answer, and it's going to be a piece of cake if you're going to be running the trial. So as for the furniture and all the details, we're going to be, as always, cutting some corners, but we're going to do the main body. I'm going to show you how to add this kind of effect to seemingly flat object, and we're also going to create those flaps around here. So a lot of very simple stuff, yet we're going to keep it entertaining. So I hope that you're going to enjoy it. Also, we're going to be building this staircase using Corona pattern. So okay, now let's go. First thing first, we need to load this file into Photoshop and change it into something that's going to be useful for us. Because right now, this file that is also available in the video description, the video that you're watching right now at the very bottom. So you have to read through to find where it is. Hello, Mohammed. Hello, Rama. Hello, Tamil. Hello, James. Hello from Sweden, Syria, and hello to you too, guys. It's really nice to have you. Okay, so we've got our Photoshop open. You can even see what I was doing in Photoshop the last time. So let's see. Now we're going to be opening this file. Just drag and drop it. In this case, I'm going to go for bounding box, anti-aliasing, and we're going to go for resolution 300 because we don't need more for what we're going to be doing. So click OK, and this is going to pretty much just load this bare bones file. So we need to make sure to control backspace to fill in the gap behind. But yeah, icky, right? So if one of the colors is already set for your back color in Photoshop, press D on your keyboard. This is going to reset. Pressing X is going to force the colors to change in the primary to secondary color. And now we can quickly do that. Because I kinda don't like the aesthetics of everything at the corners. I'm going to add a little bit of canvas. So we're going to go for 110 and 108 because I can. Now that looks better. It looks a little bit smoother. I always like to give the elements in my files a little bit of room to breathe. Now, the thing is that in the file that I've created for you guys, I've forgotten to add one quite important element, and that is measurements. So we're going to cheat a little bit and get the measurements from my main file just so we don't get too far away. But I'm going to update this file to give you some kind of ruler or measurements in order to just not go too far away. Hello from Jamaica. I'm a photographer and graphic designer. I have a huge need for a photographer. I need to learn how to do good recordings with my camera, so I would love to use somebody's knowledge to help me set up everything, because right now this is something I just need for my for my personal purposes and also for the professional ones. So clean through DS Max. Remember that this is a beginner's video. Last time we went over the whole UI and everything we're going to be using. So this time I'm only going to remind you that a very important element for us is going to be units setup. So make sure that we're working with centimeters by centimeters. This way we're not going to be lost, and whenever I type in some value, you're going to have the same. So how about we now view something? Oh, by the way, I found a file created by one of my students, Bianca. Shout out to you, Bianca. So this image, believe it or not, is not yet her final image for this beautiful exterior. Just putting this out there nonchalantly because I'm really proud of my students. They're awesome, really amazing. Hashtag blessed. Really, I've got amazing students. For some reason, they are just different to what I've heard from some of the people. Okay, so we got our JPEG file that is going to be used as our floor plan, and we're just going to drag and drop it onto our screen. And next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to try to make sure to get rid of the segments and for width and length. This is going to be this area. Now we're going to make sure to type in the right values for our file. What are the right values, you may ask? Well, it's very simple. We're going to read what dimensions does this image have in pixels. So it's pretty much those dimensions, 2570 by 3874. So the length needs to be 3874 in my case, and it's going to be also 2570. I'm going to share this exact file that I just created on our drive that you have the link to. By the way, guys, could you please do me a favor and check if the file or the link works, because that will be very much appreciated. Now let's continue. I'll be honored to be of assistance. Great tutorials, by the way. Thank you, Tony. Hello, sir. I'm from India. Thanks for your video tutorial. So helpful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Manav. It's great. I'm honored to hear that, because, you know, internet is a very, very, very scary place, and hearing all of those positives is super cool. So as I said, I'm going to be cheating at the very beginning because I've forgotten what to add any kind of measurements. So I'm going to just copy one element to grab the scale for us, and then we're going to rescale everything to fit. Sorry for that. This is just one of those things that we have to probably, bear as it's a live stream, so there's always going to be some kind of small hiccups. Hola Mexico here, nice. Hola to you too. How's the weather in Mexico? By the way, isn't it like 3 o'clock in the evening right now there? What's the time in Mexico right now? Link does work. Thank you, Azra. You are amazing. So this element is going to be our scaler. So typically what you want to do is scale your PDF to match some kind of size. And in this case, I'm going to later place a black box that's going to be 1 meter by 1 meter. So it's going to be a little bit easier for all of you to scale everything. But for now, we're going to just keep it the way it is. First, let's select our background object, go to hierarchy, and click on Effect Pivot Only. In this case, we're going to be working with the gizmo. As this is the bottom part of my model, I'm going to just grab this edge here and put it exactly in this position. That way, if I move my box that we have here, I can scale to that object. So let's just scale this object down. Okay, more or less, because remember, if our client is not going to be precise enough to give us a CAD file, it isn't really going to be permissible to have some small mistakes. Okay, so this is going to be our first object that we're going to be creating. Also, we are just going to delete it. G to turn off the grid, and now we're going to continue. If you give me 1 second, I will also activate something that is going to help the let's say beginners between us. Okay, so now we're going to see some of my key input. So okay, perfect. Let's create our first object for the box that's going to be our first container. So let's go ahead and create the box. The height is not going to matter in a second because I'm going to show you how I typically model stuff like this. What I do is I make sure to convert this object into editable poly first, then I shift drag it to my second view of the object. So it's going to be easier for me to get it. Now we're going to just rotate it and simply place it in position. Remember that if you press A on your keyboard, you're going to turn on angle snap toggle. That way it's going to activate a special option that's going to only allow your objects to rotate by every 5 degrees. Movement tool to move the object a little bit further, and now it's in the right position. We also need to create the box for the main floor object, but that's going to be handy in a second. Now I want to move this floor plan a little bit lower so my objects do not intersect. And look what I'm going to do now. Because those objects are copied as instance, both of them are going to react to changes. As long as I do not click on make unique or collapse everything. Or collapsing can be also named as convert to editable poly or different type of conversion. If I'm going to convert this object, the link between the elements is going to be broken. But for now, we're going to keep this real simple. Press 1 to move the vertices, and let's just move them a little bit. Okay, so that was super simple, right? It was. So let's go ahead and continue. Now we need this area to really fill in for the floor. So we're going to go for that, and we're going to do exactly the same thing for that object in a second. Although we have a little bit easier way of working here, because right now this element was already placed at the right height. So we need to align this box to the other one. Hi Mike, it's a pleasure to follow your tutorials. Thanks for your material. Is it possible to in the future to watch some renders in V-Ray? I mean, I don't work with V-Ray. I kind of have a little bit of a grudge with V-Ray. It's ciao from Italy. I love Italy. I absolutely love it. I've been to for at least 5 times in my life, and each time it was amazing. And I visited so many amazing places, and I don't want to be too, let's say, too friendly, because that's not what I'm trying to say, or do. But the thing is that Italians are so nice, especially those guys around Vatican. Love it. It's just amazing. Ahmed, welcome. Okay, so we got our main object for the floor. To keep it simple, I'm going to convert this object again to editable poly just in case. add inset for 1 or 2 centimeters to give my object a nice outline. Because it's going to be viewed from far distance, I want to go for 3 centimeters at least, so the element is going to be visible. I'm also going to extrude this inwards by -1 centimeter because I'm going to be adding floor object in a second. So let's go ahead and apply this. Now we can go to our detach, click on it, detach as clone, and now we're going to just click OK. This is going to create a new object which is not connected to our main body. I want to keep this main body without any holes because otherwise a little bit of light streaks may shine into this object. So let's go ahead and add floor generator as a modifier. So beginner friendly, right? If you want to get your hands on a floor generator, this plugin can be downloaded from a website called CG Source. If you want to know more about this plugin, please make sure to visit our last webinar, or the last webinar, in which we were talking about 5 top plugins for interiors, and this is one of the honorable mentions because for many people this is a no-brainer to have it, but in my case it's something that I absolutely need to have in my possession. Now the maximum length, I'm going to type in 150, unlock the minimum length and go for something around 100, so the randomization is going to be more visible. Also maximum width, because I want this to be still tidy, is going to be 22 or 20 depending on what you prefer. Something around those values is going to be good enough. Also remember that we went for -1 when we were extruding, so in this case I'm going to go for bevel of 0.1 and extrusion of 0.9. This way, if I'm going to look at this object from a side, this top is going to be perfectly aligned with the borders that we created for this object regardless. Okay, so where's the software? Perfect. And now, did you apply floor generator to a plane or a box now? I did apply it to the element that we detached from the box. To put it simple, I did add it to our plane, which was exactly in the position where I needed it. Allow me to make it a little bit easier for everybody to see. I'm going to change this color to green. Okay, that was a very bad choice because our box is also green. So let's make our floor yellow. Now, those colors are not going to have much impact, at least not yet. So what do we do with our box? Well, we're going to add all of those nice lines that we're going to hello Mike, how are you? Thank you very much. I'm fine, and how are you? By the way, guys, if you want to, you can tell me a little bit more about your experience. Have you tried any following other videos of ours? What were your results? I would love to see them. Okay, so now with our box selected, the main box that we created, I'm going to go to sub-object level 2, which is edge. Selecting all the edges along the way, I'm going to make sure to just simply grab as many connections as I need. Because this is creative work, we're going to go for a number that you like. In my case, it's going to be 8 or 9. It doesn't matter that much. I'm just going to go for a 9. And because of the aesthetics for our object, I'm going to select the opposite or perpendicular edges, and we're just going to apply a few more. Hello. And now, just to keep this international, I'm going to keep using English, if that's okay with you, but I can speak a few languages, to be honest. So thank you and witam. And now let's continue. Okay, so since we've created all those lines, what is our next step? Well, we've got a lot of options in 3ds Max. A lot of them are going to be good, some of them are going to be bad, but I kind of just need to make sure to add the chamfers to all of those loops that we created. So let's make sure to go for ring, and we need to deselect the edges that are sent in the let's say, at the sides, because we don't need those to be chamfered. Now, with all of those elements selected, or edges selected, we're going to go to chamfer. A typical chamfer that we want to add is going to be approximately 2 centimeters up to 3. So, hello, Ala. Oh, is that Ala? Because I've got a student that with the same name. But let's see. Now, we're going to just type in 2 centimeters, so the distance is not too great. And now we can select the perpendicular lines that are going to be just like those. 1, 2, okay, there's a little bit too many of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So double click, click once on a line and then double click on it to select the whole loop. We're going to go for chamfer and voila, we've got it. So this opens up a question. Do we want to extrude inwards or outwards? Let's see what the floor plan is really going to suggest we do. So at this point, we're going to go to our plane, Alt Q, and make sure to change to default shading and see where we should be going. I know that we're going to be going to the, let's say, inwards extrusion. Don't look at what we've got here. Okay, we've got that Ala. Ala, yes, King, every Thursday here for the support, and that amazing. Thank you for that. That's so cool. And now, we're just going to go ahead and click each line one by one, or we can be smart about it. So we can select 2 lines that we have here and go to our modify selection and select every we're going to dot loop this or ring mode. So if I'm going to dot loop this, you're going to see that I selected every other element. Yes, because it's non-symmetrical, those elements on the side are not going to be as nicely selected, but at least it saves me a couple of clicks. So now we're going to do a trick. I'm going to select this whole, nope, I'm just going to select, yeah, actually we're going to do that. And deselect what I don't need instead of selecting what I need. Because if I'm going to be aiming for the smaller elements, it's going to be just a huge chore for me. Now to quickly deselect the whole top, I'm going to turn on by angle and we're going to try to deselect it. But for some reason, it's not listening or doesn't get the memo. So we're in a little bit of a conundrum because right now, if I'm going to deselect this top, it's going to hurt. And now let's go to the top view and start deselecting that way. So Alt and deselect, now deselect everything. So that works really well. Now we're going to just simply use extrusion in this case, but again, we have to extrude outwards a little bit because otherwise, if I'm going to go for extrusion just inwards without the smart extrusion, what's going to happen is very worrisome for our model because it's going to there's going to be a lot of those extra lines created. So we kind of need to control I and select everything that we don't need, deselect the top yet again because I've made a mistake when I was planning for this. We actually needed the bigger chungus elements, and now we're going to go for extrusion, and this extrusion is going to be on a positive value, and look at that. Now this part is being a little bit naughty. So we're going to change this from group to local normal. By changing that, I'm going to straighten those corners because those elements are now going to be aligning to their original surface. And that's going to be just a little bit easier for all of us to work with. Doesn't matter how big or small the extrusion is going to be, just make it visible. So we're just going to go for around 5 centimeters. And because I've made this object slightly too big, I'm going to add a FFD modifier 2x2 and quickly realign those elements to fit where I want them. So let's just move this here, perfecto, and again move it there. So in this case it's going to be nicely readjusted. As I already mentioned, we're not going to be really caring about all of the details because it's creative work and sometimes we can allow ourselves to let go. Hello from Guatemala. Hi, hello sir. What 3ds Max version you use right now? At the moment I'm using 3ds Max 2024. before because it's the newest one, and I believe that updating your software is something everybody should be doing. Okay, so we've got our main body, or let's say the main element for the first container. We also have this window opening that is here, but due to the fact that I've changed my object into editable poly, not all of the changes will transfer now. So I can simply delete this and copy my element again to just align it where the window is supposed to be as instance, and we're going to move it to the position where I need it. Okay, more or less, again, we're not going to be super precise about it, but this view is very crucial for us because we kind of need the copy regardless. So let's copy our object to the top instance, and nope, this one doesn't need to be instance. We're just going to create a copy actually, because this one is going to have different set of windows and doors. So we're just going to move it here. If you want to, you can snap those objects together, but I intentionally want to leave a little bit of a gap between them. So there's going to be a little bit of an area for the shadows to form, just a little bit of it. Okay, so now we've got this object and we want to add the windows. Typically, you would go for some kind of loops and then cut the windows out. But this is not going to be really that productive because it's going to take us too long. How about we create a box instead? Not caring about its size yet, and then we're going to create another one which is going to be exactly at the front for the other window. So now we're going to select this object and apply a very specific modifier, which is Boolean. Boolean is one of my favorite modifiers right now in newer 3ds Max. We go for that and we are going to be able to subtract our objects one by one. Okay, but the subtraction also creates this let's say problem. First of all, the box wasn't in the right place, which is a problem on its own, but also we're running into an issue where it creates this loop around it. So we have to select this box and click on cookie because we like cookies. Now we're going to be able to move this object and manipulate it just like we would with normal object. And look at that, the other one is being updated in the real time, which is cool because we can go back to the box itself, make it a little bit wider, or change its height if we need to. Okay, I've made it too short and now it's invisible, so good for me, I guess. So let's not do that. And we're just going to be able to adjust all of the elements we need. In this case, I need to adhere to this, let's say, floor plan. Okay, so we need to make sure that it's going to be the right size, or at least similar size. So let's have a little bit of fun aiming at the size. I know there are better methods, but I just want to make sure that we're going to be working with the easiest method possible. So we're just going to move those elements one by one. But come on, allow me to manipulate this box now, please. For some reason, the operand is not working. Operands, please. Okay, and now we're working with that. Okay, perfect. Let's move it here. The cool thing about this is I can convert this object into editable poly as we go, and I can just move this part lower, and because this is going to be a little bit faster due to the fact that the object didn't want to cooperate. This is mostly going to be my mistakes, but again, I'm going to continue. Now, as for the other window, we need to probably see how big it is supposed to be, because again, I don't have that one view, which is a little bit, well, worrying, because I thought that I have everything that I needed for this webinar. So very sorry for that. Let's just make it a little bit lengthier, convert this element to editable poly, and let's kind of align it to our previous window so it's going to be more or less making sense. Okay, so I love how it looks. Now let's make sure that it fits exactly in the middle. So pretty much that. And we're going to just Boolean this by the modifier again. So let's go ahead and add the modifier, Boolean. You notice that because I panicked a second ago and kind of got lost with that cookie, I'm going to just convert this object to editable poly again, and this modification didn't transfer to that object. So in order to fix this, I'm going to just create a copy, as instance, and we're just going to make sure to realign it here because that was a little bit of a mistake on my side. I admit that. So we're just going to OK this part and hide my copy, delete this unneeded element, and now we've got everything in position. Don't worry about the fact that right now our floor is kind of creating all of those artifacts in the interior of our object, because what I'm going to do now, we're just going to try to add a nice cut through this object. So make sure to now go to slice plane, so select edges, go to slice plane, and we're going to add those slice planes somewhere at the bottom. So slice plane 1, and slice plane 2. So both are going to be important, but we're not going to care about everything. So this way we can add a very fast loop. When our mesh is a little bit messed up, it is going to be best to use swift loop. It's best to use our slice plane instead of swift loop, because that way we're going to be forcing this onto the object. Now, our next thing is to select the edge that we just created, select extrude option, and we're going to make sure to go inwards just ever so slightly and lower the distance, so it's going to create this nice elephant foot at the bottom. So this way we have a lot of detail on our container. That's almost perfect, so we might as well just copy this object now, since we've added a bit of detail to it, because that's going to be really what we're after. Okay, so it's in the position, we delete the previous one, and now I'm going to adjust the position of the window to make sure that it's going to be the doorway. Although the doorway is going to be a little bit too big, let's just keep it the way it is. So lower that element, and that's going to be perfect. I think it's actually going to look better this way, because yes, I've forgotten to give you the other view. That's on me. Okay, boxes are done, but now how about we create something extra? Because, well, we know that right now those objects are separate. So if I'm going to attach this part to that part, magically I'm going to have the other one on the opposite end, which is quite cool when you look at it. Now we just need to make sure to add all of the umbrellas and all of the elements one by one. Let's delete this part because we're no longer going to need it that much, or actually let's keep it just for the funsies. So cylinder, we're going to create a cylinder somewhere to fit this area. So let's make sure to hide unselected. We're going to make sure to create this cylinder as an umbrella, just as on our reference image. So this is going to be it, with a small detail around it and those lines that are going to be those nice dashes, I would say, just for the sake of detail, or to make it look a little bit better. Also, we're going to be making this nice soft transition. So, okay, how about we create a cylinder in the middle? So we're going to go ahead and just create it from scratch. Okay. By the way, guys, if you have any questions about what I'm doing along the way, please make sure to ask them or leave a comment under our video, because this way you're going to be able to, well, ask the questions you need, and I'm going to be able to give you some kind of guidance, which we all are here for. So, assalamu alaikum to you too. I'm from Turkey, and thank you, Atta, for informing us about that. Hello from Colombia. Always keep it up and followed your works. Turning the water material from a legacy to physical saved the day. Thanks. And finally, I had time to do the background like you taught us. Thanks. That's a cool thing to hear, Ala. Thank you for that. You are the best support student I ever had. Hi, bro from Kurdistan. Hello from Guatemala. Okay, now remember, guys, you have the ability to ask questions if you want to. Let's convert this object into a double poly. If you have noticed, I've added 36 sides for my cylinder, but your number can differ. It could be different if you want to. I just wanted to make sure that it's going to be an even number. So let's copy this as instance. So let's rotate it by 90 degrees. Okay, now we're going to instance this just for funsies, again, to make sure that the height is going to be more or less the same. Okay, it's more or less the same. and we're going to now convert the elements one by one. So I need to delete every second part of my model, or at least make it so that's going to disappear. So how about we do that in a second? Okay, so kind of easy, but we need to select every other polygon, and for 36 elements that's going to take a while. So how about we select only two polygons first. We go to modify selection and go for this dot loop. Click on it, and look at that, we can now delete every other object, and we are doing exactly that. So I'm also going to need to delete the bottom, because that's not an element that I'm going to need at any point in this model. How about doing footage into 3ds Max? How about drone footage into 3ds Max? Okay, drone. I kind of like that idea. I just need to get my license refreshed for drones, and then we can talk about that. Okay, so here we got a very common problem for a lot of you guys with 3D modeling. If you're going to add a turbo smooth on top of a cylinder, it's going to mess up the top entirely, because right now this top looks awful and we need to correct that. So the easiest way to do it is to just simply add a little bit of a loop, but now just that one loop is still not going to be perfect because there's a little bit of pinching left behind. So we're going to do one more element just so it's going to allow us to get that extra loop in here. So that way, our turbo smooth is not going to mess up absolutely anything, because now not enough edges are being broken to really make a difference. Since I've got a little bit of a plugin installed, I'm going to cut some corners, but honestly, we don't need to, because yeah, I don't need to do it. Let's just go ahead and do another tricky trick. You go for inset. Since I've got an even number of edges in here, I'm going to select one, go to modify selection, go for dash loop or dot loop. Sorry, we're going to dot ring this and just delete every other edge. In this case, I'm going to select all of the edges, collapse this middle part. So collapse, and this way my geometry is in full quad thanks to this operation. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this way, when I turbo smooth, it's going to be nice flower at the top. But the elements in here do not work really well. So how about I, now let's say, explain to you a small property of edges. So turbo smooth, what it does, it creates a nice, it creates polygons or edges in between your vertices. So pretty much it calculates the approximates the difference between two edges and tries to act upon it. So if I'm going to now add a turbo smooth to this object, because there's no information in this area is going to remain the same. So it's going to just be boring. But this area, due to the fact that it has some kind of information, it's going to try to use this curvature. This doesn't have any curvature because it doesn't connect to anything. So even if I add an edge here and edge there, there's nothing to connect to because the lines are absolutely straight. So 3ds Max, for some reason, just doesn't understand that we're trying to add a little bit of smoothness and make this a little bit easier for ourselves. So because of that, 3ds Max is going to create this. Even if I go for more turbo smooth, it's not going to work. So what can we do is select every piece of geometry, Control A, go for inset, and just simply add an inset of a small number. Something around 1 centimeter is going to be enough to absolutely shatter our 3ds Max view on this object and actually add a little bit of curvature in it. So now we're going to go for 2 iterations, and we just made this beautiful umbrella-like object. Thank you very much for all the lessons. I'm from Kurdistan. Because of you, now I'm working in a big production and visual names Retro Agency. That's amazing. I never imagined that videos like those are going to be this popular and so helpful. I'm really grateful that you still do tune in. So thank you for that. Alt X to look through this object, and we're going to just make sure to place one of the loops somewhere closer to where the lines or cables are supposed to be. Doesn't matter that much, but we're going to go for extrusion, and we're going to do the same trick we did a second ago with details for our other elements. So lower that and just close it, so we're going to have that loop. Alt 1 to create to select Swift loop. We're going to create those Swift loops in the places where we need it. I don't need this one, but I'm going to keep it because it's adding the right curvature for the top. And now we've got this nice object done in 3ds Max. Okay, so with all of that out of the way, let's just position it in accordance to the rest of our model. Unhide all, and let's put it somewhere closer to the top. Okay, it's starting to actually look good. Okay, bit closer, perfect, but not intersecting. Hello from India, your tutorials are amazing, thank you for that, it's really highly appreciated. Hello from Mike from Nepal, very informative webinar. Glad that you're learning something. By the way, guys, if you have any questions, please make sure to ask them. I'm going to be very happy to help you along the way. Hello from Cambodia. I really love your lesson. Hello from Syria. Hello from Sri Lanka. Hello from London. That's, well, guys, nice to see all of you. Okay, so we've got our object in the right position. So how about we now add the beams that are here? So the beams are very simple because, again, those are just going to be shapes. To create a shape like this, you don't have to go through some elaborate hoops and loops to create some kind of H shape. So one of the easiest ways of doing it would be just simply drawing a rectangle like this. Then we've got two options. We're either going to start editing it or we can edit it more. So convert this object to editable spline. Let's make sure to do the bare minimum of work. So for that, I'm going to go a little bit lower and divide both lines into two sections. So we're going to pretty much create three sections, but two vertices. Divide, select this middle part, and now we're going to just do this. And this is the tricky part, because now we need to shift drag this part and shift drag that part. Because, well, I wasn't very precise with my dragging, and you may end up with a very asymmetrical object. What you can do is just not care about this kind of setting at all, or you can just put them as close as you can, select both, and then make sure to change your pivot point center into middle. So that way, if I'm going to go to toggle snap and make sure that it's set to vertex and midpoint, midpoint is my favorite setting here. We're going to just change this midpoint and just apply it to the top line. This way, we know that the distance here and here is exactly the same. And it's just going to be a bit of a cheat sheet for you guys to get a little bit more out of it. Extrude this outwards, and we're going to just put this H-beam up until the spot where the umbrella is. Also, please remember that all the objects that we create in 3ds Max will be created at 0 level. So my boxes are a little bit higher, so we're just going to align those. Okay, lower the size. I want to be precise, so I'm holding left alt to make sure that everything I'm doing in 3ds Max is going to have a little bit of precision. Now let's select that other beam and let's just copy it where it's supposed to be. Again, I'm not going to be super precise about it because this is creative work just for funsies. So we're learning something. We're going to create something that's going to look good, feel good, and we're not going to be too invested in precision. So let's just select those two, move them closer, just so they're closer to the edge, not really caring about that much. And we're now going to deselect those parts. As long as they look good, we're going to feel good about them, and we're going to delete the elements we don't need at the moment. And let's create the let's say flaps from our windows. Hello Javiera, nice to have you. Javiera is also one of my students. Since I kind of want to show your work, guys, again, so I'm going to just go ahead and visit our webinars or our students folder. By the way, Javiera, nice to have you. I did receive your file. I'm going to look into it a little bit later on, probably right after this webinar. So I'm going to show you guys something that Javiera is working on. This is amazing. So let's see. This image is still in the works, but this is going to be extremely impressive once she's done with this scene. But Javiera is actually quite pro, I would say. So let's download this because I don't want to, let's see, okay, we don't have your surname in the chat, so I'm not going to be showing it for no reason, unless you want that. So, okay, got it. So we haven't highlighted Javiera's work yet, but look at that. First of all, amazing. Second of all, wow, this looks like a photo and I'm extremely proud of you. And we're viewing this online because why not? So everybody can see that students can come to us with fair knowledge of 3ds Max, because Javiera is actually starting not from absolute beginner level, but level 3 out of 5. So she's, let's say, intermediate. Level 5 means that you probably don't need our training, so you wouldn't be even inclined to come to our training. Although this is really great. So we've got, wait a second, we need to change this image. Doesn't work, so we're going to open another one manually. Look at this work by Javiera. She has created this on her own. No, okay, a little bit of input from me was added, but she absolutely created all the materials, all the lighting. I was just saying, you know what, fix this, fix that. I don't like this. But the end result, look at that. This is beyond good looking. And again, this close-up, super impressive, super tasty, and really great work. Later, I'm going to also highlight Ala's work because it's just as impressive, but we're probably going to visit more students' folders just so you can enjoy it with us. Hello from Azerbaijan. Mike, tell me, please, Lightmix, does it slow down the render speed? So, Asif, I would say that official documents of the Corona suggest that it doesn't, but from my personal experience, I noticed that reaching the same noise level while Lightmix is on is taking a little bit longer. So their calculations, from my point of view, aren't necessarily precise. And no, it's not connected to RAM, it's just that the software works this way. Okay, so now let's make sure to also add a floor to both of our objects inside. So first I'm going to select this loop here and also this loop inside of the other box. So we're going to go ahead and create shape from selection. It's going to be linear. Both of those objects now are going to, both of those shapes are going to allow us to work with this with our floor generator. So just to be absolutely sure, because 3ds Max likes to crash with 3ds with a floor generator, because, well, floor generator is not necessarily the most let's say the most stable of plugins ever, although it's the most downloaded software for plugin for 3ds Max like ever. So let's select those two. We're going to copy this floor generator, not cut, just copy, paste it. Okay, now we're going to paste this one, so paste as, yeah, just paste. Okay, didn't crash, and paste this one so we're not crashing. Perfect. Now we've got our floor plan, floor generators added to our boxes, so both have a really nice floor in them. So I promised that we're going to be doing those flaps on the windows. So we're going to be using very similar technique that we did use a second ago, but on a box. So convert this object to editable poly. Let's go. Now we're going to make sure to move this one element here and this one element there. I want this to be, let's say, not too long, so let's shorten this. Okay, kind of like the proportions. This looks nice, so let's go ahead and Alt Q this. Okay, just Yes. Now we're going to delete those two parts at the bottom. So we're going to be working with only this outer shell. We're going to do exactly the same thing we did at the very beginning. So add a lot of edges, in this case 8 or 9, depending on what you would prefer. Since we're on the topic, we're also going to be adding a little bit of chamfer because that's going to be necessary. Making sure that it's going to be triangular chamfer because that's something you're going to probably need. Okay, add some kind of distance, not a lot, just some of it. We're going to go and repeat the same process here. Make sure to do 2 or 3 flaps, depending on what you would prefer. In my case, it's going to be 2 lines and the additional chamfer just for the sake of it. Also, we're going to add 2 lines in this. Okay, my mouse is acting up. Thank you. This is the best moment she could do that. Okay, so let's add up 2 swift loops at the edges, and now we're going to just continue. What I need to do is delete this part and that part and that part and that part. Okay, not exactly. So let's go ahead and just select everything and deselect what we don't need in this case. Yes, I could just go for the dot loop and dash loop selection, but it's going to break at this area, so I'm just going to save us a little bit of time by not doing that. Okay, so this object at this point is going to have exactly the same problem our umbrella had. So we're going to Control A everything and just add this very unnecessary in normal circumstances inset. So we're just going to lower it, and due to the fact that I've forgotten to add one more loop, we're going to have a little bit of a bad time. So we're going to go back, add that loop prior to deleting everything, and deselect the top, because that's going to be something that if we will keep, we're going to regret. So let's make sure to deselect that. Okay, so now the flops are going to be really great. I hope that this is not going to be a flop in the end. Okay, so perfect, just a little bit, so it's going to be nicer now. Okay, if I'm going to go for turbo smooth, we're going to see that everything is now nice and round. We could do it on using different methods, but I believe that this one is just simpler, faster, and it's nonsense-free. And that's what I try to always go for when modeling in 3ds Max. I try to go for the easiest possible method. I know that I could just add a few lines in between and do it easier, but honestly it's going to be just a simple object on let's say above our window, so we're just going to keep it very, very simple. Yeah, since we're on topic, we're just going to copy this. By the way, guys, just so that you remember, during our training, we go through approximately 2 weeks of straight modeling. First, we do some basic modeling, advanced modeling, and we model out some objects that even those people that came with some 3ds Max knowledge had problems with. So we kind of make sure to tailor the level of difficulty to everybody's personal preferences. Okay, so we pretty much have majority of our object done. We could add those cables, but I think it's just redundant. Adding the let's say elements at the detail at the window is going to be super simple, because all we need to do is add too big of a box for this hole, and that's it. So this way it's going to be nice and easy. Make sure that it's going to be neatly aligned inside of that window. Let's convert this object into editable poly, extrude it outwards a little bit, and we're going to blatantly just select this edge and that edge. So we're going to add a super chamfer to it because, well, it's just chamfer, but I call it super because in this case, we're just not caring too much about the topology any longer. Let's move it slightly forward and rotate it by 90 degrees to just have a little bit of more fun with 3ds Max. Now we're going to just move it here, and this seems to be too big. So how about we just adjust it? Okay, and okay again. Thank you, 3ds Max. I don't need you to do the autosave. If I die, I die. I mean, if 3ds Max dies on me, we're going to probably just end here. Okay, so now I need to copy this part and just that one part and Control. Thank you. Okay, for some reason it's deselecting everything I do, so shift drag it, thank you. Do you also experience that sometimes 3ds Max is snappy and very, let's say, it's acting like a child that's very and naughty when you're modeling online with audience live? Because I did. Okay, can freeform be used for generating roads in terrain in 3ds Max, and what is the best value to minimize noise in render? There's no such thing as value to minimize noise in render. I would say that it would be best to just test on specific spots in your render how long or how much noise limits you need. Typically, when doing exteriors, you want to change to path tracing option in 3ds Max Corona. So it's going to be a secondary solver. Changing it to path tracing is going to be good. For interiors that are going to be super large, changing to 4K cache is also going to be somewhat helpful, but in most of the cases it's not going to have that much of an impact if you're going to be going in on it, well, let's say bare bones, because typically you don't need too much detail there. Hello Mike, I want to see how you use lighting and render settings and material about Corona. So we're going to probably get there in a few minutes. So now let's go ahead and just continue building. We need the staircase here, so let's go ahead and change our viewport to the full shading. Okay, so this pretty much is modeled from scratch right now. So we need the staircase. Typically, when doing stairs, I like doing a little bit of I like doing it a little bit easier for myself. So we're going to go for shift and drag a line that's going to be a straight line around here. So this is the length of the steps I need, right? The height is going to be determined by the booth, so it's going to be like, well, super easy. Make sure to put it on 0, and we're going to go to our stairs option in creation, go to our stairs, and we need to kind of follow this procedure, because first we're going to press S, and we're going to just type or create the object from point A to point B, which is going to be the length. Then we go to the left and we're going to create the height. Because I started from this point, you can see that we actually have the risers at the opposite side. So we're going to be going from the end of our stairs, or the lowest point, to the highest point, and then we're going to be adding the width. Then we're going to add the stairs height, and this is pretty much the whole procedure. Now, why did I do the line? Because otherwise I would be probably a little bit creating a little bit skewed staircase. There would be a chance that it would be out of line, so I don't want that. Okay, now this looks quite okay, but not yet good, so let's make sure to adjust some height and the rest of the elements. So height goes up until this point. I want this to be at the same level of the floor that we have here, so we're just going to go ahead and go for some precision mode, and that's working really fine. Also, the width is supposed to be a little bit bigger, so let's Alt-X this and make sure to add the width so it's going to fit. In this case, unfortunately, my staircase didn't work out the way I wanted it, so we're going to make sure to also add a little bit of the length, so it's going to fill in for the gaps. Sometimes 3ds Max is unpredictable, even for me, but I still accept you as the way you are, 3ds Max. Okay, now we're going to go for stingers, because we need them in this case. So we don't want to go for closed, we don't want to go for box stairs, we don't want to go for closed, we want to go for open. And since we did, we're also going to go for rail path on the left, nope, on the right. We're going to go for both, actually. So since we're here, do we need to add the handrails? No, because this is going to be an object that's going to be more annoying than helpful, so we don't do it. At least not here. Now the steps thickness, we can add a little bit of it. I want this to be 3. Also, we're going to go for depth, no need. Carriage, where we need a little bit more width. In this case, I'm going to go for 10, so it's easier. We can also add more of those in the count if you really want to go for something fancy, but in this case I'm just going to go for 1 because that's enough for me. So close this. Offset is fine. Now the stingers, we need way bigger depth, way bigger, so it's going to cut into our object as we go. This is going to be also very helpful because now I need to go width of 2 and offset of 1. So in this case, I want this to be a little bit outside of my staircase. So we want to add at least that much thickness. 4 is going to be fantastic because it's going to be easier to add all the railings and whatnot. So let's go for that. Okay, so since we're on the topic, let's just convert this object to editable poly. And now we're going to extrude those parts that we just created. So first I'm going to select this, shift drag it up until I'm going to be satisfied with the width. Okay, now we need to do this to add a little bit of an option to for the staircase to have some kind of let's say not curvature, but to change the direction it's going. Let's add the same type of thickness here, and we're going to go for the connection in this area so it goes inside of the house. Because it's very thin, I'm going to make sure that it doesn't go too far because otherwise it's going to look bad, and we don't want that. Okay, so pretty much we're in the clear. So why did we go for those lines, and what's the purpose will they serve? Well, first of all, those are going to be very helpful to create our railings for every piece of geometry. But do we really need them? Since we could just double click in here and just double click in here and change it? We kind of do because they're in the right position. But if you don't want to use those, you don't need to. It's just that those elements will be, okay, actually they're not even in the right position in this case because I've added the offset. So we're just going to do this dirty. So let's create this element, 1, 2, 3, okay. Everything looks fine. Let's create shape from selection, and we're going to go for linear. Why linear? Because this way we're not going to have any curvature, and curvature would be actually very against us. So let's go for extrude, and we kind of don't need this to be this tall. We only need something around 90 centimeters to make it look good, but well, OSHA regulations are a little bit different. Hello Mike, I want to see how you use lighting and render settings and material about Corona. That's fine, we're going to go for that. Can we freeform? Okay, best regards, Mike. Firat, thank you for that. Let's go ahead and now just convert this object to editable poly again. Actually, no, we're going to first copy it and place it exactly in this position. Extrude it only by 3 centimeters, and now we're going to add a shell modifier to it, so we're going to have some kind of ending for our railings. So let's go for 3 centimeters here and 3 centimeters here. Perfect. Now we have a nice thick element. Also, since we've got those lines created, I need to use them. So how do we use them? First of all, we're going to convert this object into editable poly. Add a few connections in between. So 1, 2, 3, 5 looks fine. Okay, now we're going to do similar thing here. 4 is going to be enough in this area. I think yes. And here we're just going to go for 2 because it's not really going to be that large of a distance. So we already have everything we need for this object. So let's make sure to ring this, ring that. Okay, and we deselect some elements that we don't need, so just this part. Actually, I'm going to keep it because why not? Create shape from selection, linear, and this time we're going to be doing a little bit of a different thing because we're going to be adding rendering, and we want to enable this object in render, in viewport, and we kind of want to keep this nice and round because if we go to rectangular, it's still going to be fine, but I don't like the way it looks, so maybe actually we're going to keep it, but it all depends on what your personal preferences are. Okay, so let's deselect everything, and we've got really nicely done railing. So most of the modeling is done. We need the logo and the teapot, so we're going to do that in a second. Is this stream gonna be available somewhere after it ends so I can watch it later? Yes, it's going to be available, and we're going to finish it with rendering, so it's going to be probably nice to revisit it later on. So Let's continue. Now, this model is also lacking the floor planks in this area. Is it still live? I hope so. I do hope so that it's still live. Pixel view. So let's see what we have in here. So an editable spline is going to allow us to move all of those elements outside. So what I'm going to do here is simply try to add all of those elements outside. Okay, I don't need to have all of those edges because they kind of mess up my mood. So we're going to delete as many as we need and just simply grab this edge and go outside with this element. We're going to make sure that we kind of cheat our way into making believable floor planks. Because this is now a shape, all we need to do is move it outside. A dirty secret of all 3D artists is that you can intersect objects, and you should do that. Anybody who says that you cannot allow any objects to intersect and every piece of geometry needs to be perfect probably isn't really working in the industry and just pretends that he knows or she knows. So my advice, don't listen to this type of people, because yes, probably they do work in the industry. Yes, they probably do whatever they are doing, but are they happy? Nah, because they are still clicking the vertices. So we pretty much modeled every element of our cute house. So now we're going to have to start adding some of the details. So just to, as always, cut some corners, I pre-prepared some of the furniture, because honestly, downloading freebies from the internet was the easiest thing ever. So we're just going to go first of all into Chaos Cosmos browser, and we're going to see my downloaded models. So all downloaded, and what we can see here is I've got this plant, so I'm going to load it into this scene. I'm also going to be using this net pattern, which is also part of Chaos Cosmos. It's literally one of the first objects you can download in the materials section. So materials, and this is not decals, it's the patterns. So where's it's actually, yeah, and the mesh pattern. So we need to go here and just paste it on top of an object. So the object we're going to be pasting this on is going to be this railing. So the railing is going to need mapping. UVW map, let's add some kind of mapping. And in this case, to cut some corners, we're going to go for UVW map, select box, and just type in something around 50 by 50 by 50. I need to change this num tab because it looks awful. So now we're going to go back to our Chaos Cosmos browser. So Chaos Cosmos browser, just click on it, download it onto an object. You can see that now the pattern appeared, and once I rendered this, it's going to have amazing amount of detail, because that's how the Corona pattern works. If you want to learn a little bit more about Corona pattern itself, please make sure to visit our previous video on the said topic. Start interactive, and we're going to just continue. Sir, watching your videos from Turkey, I wish you continued success. I think the videos are very instructive. Thanks. That's really amazing to hear, Agor. That's, well, heartwarming. Okay, so right now the environment is not yet set up, but look at that detail. This is amazing. That's why I love Corona pattern. A little bit of a trivia. The reason why I created account on Corona panel or forum was strictly to request this as one of the, let's say, features in Corona, because this method was already available for a different software, but not for Corona. And the developers said, yeah, it's a good idea, but we have different priorities. And lo and behold, just 8 years later, they added it in. So yeah, I'm really glad that this option is in, because it's a huge lifesaver for me. I absolutely love it, and it's great. Why are you using Cosmos instead of Maya, Blender, etc.? What's the pros of this software? So I'm not using Chaos, I'm using exactly 3ds Max. So Maya and 3ds Max are not same. They're from the same developer or manufacturer. or publisher. It's from Autodesk. So what is 3ds Max and why it is better than Blender? At the moment, I cannot say it's better than Blender. I cannot say that it's going to be more intuitive if you're going to be starting from scratch. But I can say this. It's an industry standard that most of the companies work with. It also works with most of the formats that you're going to run into when working with professionals that use Revit, ArchiCAD, AutoCAD, or any kind of CAD software. It's, let's say, one of the most popular programs out there in the world. So the reason why I'm using it is mostly because it's the industry standard and it's really efficient to work with. There are some pros and cons to 3ds Max or Blender, and all of that software is definitely good, but there's always some kind of downside, even to Maya, which is one of those programs that everybody likes, and for some reason nobody uses. It's a really weird thing, because Maya is an amazing software that I really love, and I believe that it's one of those programs that if you know how to use, it's just so nice to work with. Although, as I mentioned, not a lot of people do, and it's kind of a weird thing for me, because I always thought that at some point Maya is going to be even better than 3ds Max, but it turns out no. It's used mostly for animation, from what I've noticed, and 3ds Max for some reason is most beloved by ArcViz artists. Is it only for that? No, not at all. And to prove this, one very prominent YouTuber his name is just too hard for me to pronounce, but he even made a segment, 3ds Max is only for ArcViz, where he highlights the most advanced videos ever created. He actually worked on Game of Thrones, so some of you may actually know whom am I talking about. So that guy is amazing, and I've actually was a little bit rude in one of his comments, so I apologize. Not that rude, but still, it felt stupid after I posted it. Anyway, let's continue. So I'm going to need this plant. This is the one I used for the video, so just a reminder, we're trying to recreate this thing, and it's going to be very simple. So we're going to need this chair, we're going to need a little bit of a plant, we're going to need some kind of a set, and we just placed this plant. We're also going to place this teapot and the logo, but if you forgive me, I'm not going to be modeling the logo, I'm just going to load it, because it's going to be easier and faster for all of us to do it that way. Okay, so now I kind of think it's going to be rotated this way because it's looking nice and sharp. Okay, so this is the position where I'm going to place this plant. How about the rest of the furniture? Well, obviously we need to load it in, so I pre-prepared some of the models for myself and myself only, but those models are actually available online for free on websites like 3D Sky or others. So if you want to get your hands on the same models, you kind of can do that. So okay, let's place this chair here. Almost perfect. Just need to put it in the right position, and let's just copy it a couple of times. Typically, when you will be working with multiple files that, multiple objects that look the same, just for the sake of realism, or at least making it appear like you cared, rotate them slightly. It is possible that people would be placing those objects exactly the same, but adding a little bit of chaos is always good, especially in 3ds Max, because it really makes your work stand out a little bit more. Let's move it downwards, and now it's going to be on the floor, so that's cool. Okay, I just noticed that I've absolutely messed up with my staircase because I've made it a little bit too high. So what we're going to do is add a 2x2 modifier, and we're just going to blatantly stretch it out like this, but on the both sides, and we're just going to go for that. Okay, I could go for 3 by 3, but it's not going to have an impact on my model that much. But you know what? I kind of don't like the effect I'm getting, so we're going to add another modifier, 3 by 3 modifier, and we're just going to do a little bit of cheating here because I've forgotten about one property. And look at that, I'm just stretching this element here. Okay, it's messing up this model too much, so we're going to have to remodel some parts or rescale them to some extent. I don't really want to do that because it's going to cost us a little bit of time, and I've forgotten to place everything on 0. So this is on me again. So okay, because of that, we can actually keep it the way it is, but we're going to have to edit it some of the elements to the left. So let's select this part. Okay, mistakes can happen. This is something that we are just going to be experiencing a lot from time to time, so adjusting to make sure that everything is fine is going to be also fine, as long as we don't overdo it and we are not changing something dramatically. It should be absolutely okay to make some mistakes, just like I did right now. By the way, guys, keep the questions coming. It's going to be lovely to have a little bit of 3ds Max conversation. Also, Blender people are very much welcome here as well. Okay, let's position the floor slightly lower now, since I've moved that part, and now it's going to be perfect. Although this part I messed up so much, we're just going to mess this up even further if I'm going to continue. So we're now going to pretend that we didn't mess up. It's interesting that Autodesk made two softwares that are competing in the industry. I'll let you in on a secret. They didn't create it, they bought it. So the fact is that they did buy it to profit from it. So the software is not competing. They kind of have the market. So there are other, let's say, programs that compete with Autodesk. For example, Cinema 4D, Blender, and a couple of others, but they're not as popular. Although it's really going to be one of those things that you have to consider that, well, it's not that easy. You guys are the best. Love all the content. Thank you, Nagila. It's really nice to hear this, and really super refreshing to have such a nice audience, because honestly, I never imagined that we're going to have such a friendly community. I always was sure that people in the 3D industry are very helpful, because when I was beginning, I was watching a lot of YouTube. What's going on in here? Okay, so I need to move it backwards. And why did this land on the 0 for some reason? Okay, we're just going to move it here. Perfect. Great. Now we're going to move this furniture. I don't want to put this below 0 because it's just bad practice. Now let's move the furniture in. I promise this is a free set from 3D Sky that I just found there, and because it was free, I downloaded it and I'm using it just to fill in the gaps in my in my kitchen to make sure that it looks good. Does it look good? Well, you tell me, because I kind of like it. So now we're going to go for the final furniture and merge this in. Also, this used scene material. I didn't care for this furniture so much that I really didn't even look at what I'm downloading, as long as it was more or less in position. Remember that it's all about making this, this is creative endeavor. We're working on some kind of image that is supposed to look nice and be kind of an eye candy. So that's why I'm not going to care about small details. And if this would be something I'm doing for a client, that would be something that I would be probably a little bit more stressed about. But honestly, since it's just something we're doing for funsies, we're just going to keep it the way we are. Okay, perfect. Now let's place it here in the middle, and we're just going to copy this a couple of times so it's going to be in the nice position. So copy again, and I am specifically placing those objects by hand to make sure that they will look a little bit more natural and there's a little bit of imperfection that's in between them. That way it's always going to look a little bit more natural. Okay, so we've modeled every piece of geometry that we needed in this model. Now we need to create the right materials and the lighting. Before we really can do the lighting, I'm going to make sure to delete one of the main elements. Oh, by the way, I forgot about the top. Hello. Do you guys? Okay. By the way, guys, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them right now, so I can answer those since we are live and online. So let's just stretch this out to add a little bit of detail that's going to be just for fun. And this is the last thing I'm going to be copying from my main scene, just the logo and the neon sign and this teapot. The teapot is the default object in 3ds Max, so there's no secret to it, there's no special sauce behind it. It's just a simple teapot that I don't want to recreate because it's going to save us all a little bit of time. Paste from, okay, which according to you is the best software for rendering? At the moment, I believe it's going to be Corona still, because Corona gives you the best quality and the best bang for the buck. Honestly, I believe that at the moment, V-Ray is definitely going to be a competitor when it comes to rendering and all that, but I still stick to Corona. I just think since the first time I worked with Corona, I absolutely fell in love with it, and I'm using it ever since. Why? Because it's simple, it's easy to learn, and it's really nonsense free. I say this a lot, nonsense free, but I like when my everything I create is predictable. I like being creative. I like focusing the most of my time on well, the creative part of my work and not actually being an engineer. And in V-Ray, at least a couple of years ago, now it kind of changed. It was that before you can actually start creating anything in this software, you have to absolutely know absolutely everything about each polygon, each pixel that you're going to be creating. And there was a lot of that extra knowledge that was absolutely not even connected to your work, but you had to know all of that. And I really didn't like that, because I remember when I was going to Warwick's let's say his classes online, and he is genius, really, but the classes were very advanced, and even with my knowledge, it was a little bit overwhelming to hear all of those details that weren't really that easy to follow, especially since, well, I wasn't a full-fledged professional at the moment just yet. Okay, so now we need to place our camera. I want to position, I want to use just simple orthographic view, but we're going to first place our camera 45 degrees to the element, create camera from the current view. Thanks to the fact that Corona is working with this camera regardless, we're now going to just change some of the settings to fit a little bit better. First of all, I need to make sure that the proportions of my image are going to be more Instagram friendly. To make it Instagram friendly, I'm going to go for 0.8, so it's going to be the typical resolution we're going to be using. Now 0.80 for the width, and this is going to be the perfect size. Let's make sure to change the FOV and rotate our camera ever so slightly to fit the image a little bit better. But it's going to be actually easier for me to move camera instead, so I'm going to make sure to go to local, use the camera gimbal, and we're just going to move it away. Okay, target it, and let's make sure that the target is somewhere in the middle of the building. Okay, so now we're more or less okay. I like this angle. It looks quite close to what we are going for. No, we need to go lower. Okay, also slightly, maybe slightly to the left, right. Yeah, let's just keep it the way it is. Okay, and now we need to rotate our, let's say, environment studio that we created by 45 degrees on the z-axis to make sure that the light is going to be reflected the right way. We could rotate everything around, but I kind of want to keep my object intact due to the fact that, well, it's going to be easier for me to follow along this way. Okay, let's move it here, move that further away. I mean this wall. It's going to be further away from our object. Perfect. And let's make it so that it's going to be a little bit longer. Sometimes when using orthographic view, you're going to run into this issue where your camera is going to have this. Okay, it's at 45 degrees. It's going to cut in below the surface that you've created. And even if you're going to make this one line a little bit longer, it's not going to help that much because the camera is already cutting in. So even if I go for a local, move this away slightly, in some cases it's not going to fix it because my camera and where the point where it starts might be cutting in. So please remember to check if your camera is in the right position. In my case, it's actually going to work really nicely. Although if it wouldn't, I would move away my camera so the starting point would be outside. So it's going to be looking at this area and at that floor at the same time. Okay, so now our camera is more or less set. So it's time to set up all of the materials. By the way, are you from Poland? Maybe. Yes, I am. So our company started in Poland, but it grew a little bit more, and since I was living in UK for quite a while and I know the, let's say, the ropes at that market, I decided that we're going to be expanding. This was not really my decision, to be honest, because Vizacademy was created by Wojtek and Anton, which are amazing people, really brilliant people, and I was just spotted by them, and that way I became part of the team. They're absolutely amazing, genius people. So let's continue. Is it hard to get a job in 3D? Tight deadlines and lots of competition. I would say it is going to be just like any other job. If you're good at it, there's no competition for you. But to be absolutely honest with today's market, you at least have to have a little bit of a skill to be able to get a very good one. I mean, good job. From what I know, from what I've heard from my students, because currently I'm not hunting for any job, at least not that I know of. But from what I've heard from my students, finding a job was never a problem for them after our training, and I know some people that where their starting salary was way better than my salary after a few years in the industry. So right now I would say the industry is blooming. Some people are afraid of the upcoming AI and, oh, it's going to take away our job, but honestly I don't feel like this is going to happen anywhere anytime soon, because to be honest, AI is going to be just one of the tools that artists are going to be using just like anything else. So it's just going to be for our pleasure, I guess. But to be absolutely honest about the topic, I know that a lot of people are feeling or being afraid that they will be replaced. Honestly, I don't think so, and there's no need for that, because you still have to remember that in order for your client to be able to replace you, first of all, that client has to have time to work on you. And no, that's not going to happen. Also, tight deadlines, competition. Tight deadlines are a possibility, but it all depends on what you do and what type of clients you're going to be choosing. Because one thing that a lot of people do not understand is, as much as the client will be choosing you as an artist, you as an artist will be choosing your clients almost the same way. So if you're going to be working in, let's say, gaming industry, which has a very high degree of competition, and the deadlines are very tight, and people tend to be very weird. I really know a lot of people that work within the game dev industry, but I kind of think that most of them have some kind of, well, personal problems. Not to rag on anybody, because that's not my point, but really a lot of those people are not that friendly. They're kind of lost, and yeah, the deadlines can only happen if you allow them to happen. If you're going to allow your boss to let's say treat you badly, you're going to be treated badly. It's like toddlers. If a toddler will see that you are weak, and you're going to allow that toddler to eat candy and do whatever it wants, it will, because it can, and that's it. So this is all going to come down to just how much do you value yourself. Please need force pack for 3ds Max. Anyone able to help? Diola. Go to i2 software, that's the website where you can get it, and download the LT version. So it's the lighter version for free, because I'm guessing you are one of the beginners that need to work with that. Unless you are already a professional, then you want to go to the i2 software website and make a purchase of their beautiful software. Okay, so we're going to be now creating material for the floor and for our planks, because I want to make a material that's going to be more or less uniform and very easy to work with. I'm going to create a UVW mapping on top of it, go for 250, 250, 250, and we're just going to make sure to start creating materials. Go to physical material first and select a simple material that's going to be it's going to serve as our main floor material. Corona has a lot of amazing options for us to offer. For example, texture randomization, which is going to be set to mesh element and instance. We're going to also go for Corona bitmap, and I'm going to be plugging in this map that our students during the training will be obtaining. So you can also grab a few of our textures from our website, that's Vizacademy Co UK. Once again, if you want to become one of my students, just like Ala, Javiera, and lots more people that joined in for our training, please make sure to visit our website, that's Vizacademy Co UK. Once again, if since the topic of licensing is on the table, I would like to remind you that our students are eligible to get their hands on something that is quite amazing, and that is 3ds Max students license. And that's something that I absolutely love about 3ds Max, because they help regular people get their first steps in 3ds Max. And that's really precious, because it helped me a lot when I was a student. I really appreciated that license, because it just worked the way I wanted. I had a license, I was able to use it, and I was able to create some creative stuff for myself. Okay, so since we've got those elements, I've added the material for the floor, and we can just test it by selecting all the similar objects. So let's do that. 3ds Max is acting up again a little bit. So okay, we're going to now go ahead and we're going to add the exclusion for the objects. Exclusion done, and let's see how it works. Perfecto. Even better than the original from as far as I can see that. Okay, so now how about we create this orange material, because that's going to be the most important part. Now to make it easier for myself, I'm going to detach those parts or two elements because they will require a separate material. So separate material, here we go. This material is going to be, again, you guessed it, Corona physical material. Corona physical material is the most simplest material of all. I love this new thing about it, that whenever you create metal, it's going to lock the refraction because you cannot have refractive metal. That's amazing and I love it. I know it's not the focus, but it's easy to learn English with this class. It's possible to identify several technical terms as the pronunciation is clear. Oh, no. Wow, that's a new one. Thank you for that. It's really a compliment for me, especially that probably some of you can hear that English is not my first language. Thanks for the 2 extra webinars, Mike. I thought you were gonna give us only 1. Well, I was planning to give you 2, but this Friday, the plan initially was to give you 2, although on a Friday I'm going to my friend's wedding, and I didn't want to, well, I wanted to give you something extra. So the current class is getting extra webinars to help them finish up the work. We typically do not extend our classes too much, but I kind of, when the students are fine, and so far all of my classes were so nice that I kind of made it a normal thing, but not all of them get 2 webinars. Let's put it that way. Not because they're let's say in any shape or form not worthy, but some classes just don't need it. Some classes have one class even said that, no, Mike, we're done. We finished every work. I don't want to start a new image, because typically our students create multiple images during the training. So Ala is one of those students that created multiple shots. And since we have him in our chat, I'm just going to jump right into its folder and we're going to show you some of his amazing work. So let's buckle up because that is worthy of your time. I am extremely proud of you, and I already said that a couple of times, I know, but to be honest, I really am. So let's just see what we've got in that folder. So let's go to show view. Okay, now with that out of the way, let's hear it for Ala. So this is the first image he created with us, first image he finished with Vizacademy. I would say spectacular result, very impressive, congratulations. This is the third image that he created. There are some small mistakes that I'm not going to be pointing out online because nobody has to hear this, but yes, this image is super impressive and I'm going to really like seeing it in your portfolio. Now, the third image is extremely good, especially that this is not Photoshop. This is the effect that he was able to achieve thanks to yours truly, but honestly, it's something amazing to see how fast Ala was able to learn, and he really, I at least hope that he was able to develop his skills a little bit further, and well, good luck to you, man. So we're going to create a very similar material to what we have here. We're going to make sure that our metallic beams are going to have a little bit of that damage. And thanks to the fact that we are actually highlighting some of the work of, well, one of our students, we're going to do a very similar thing, but for the orange, white, and black material. So we're going to basically use the same setup 3 times with different color. So first thing I'm going to do is apply a special map that I called damage map. So this is damage preset. It's just for a little bit of roughness in our metal or non-metallic object. So let's go for non-metal because I don't need this to be metallic. Also, we're going to make this closer to blackish, not fully black, but it also shows that we're getting that effect. Because it's a little bit too much, I'm going to lower this roughness to something around 15, so the effect is very soft. So let's go for 25-ish, perfect. Now let's lower the roughness on our object regardless to 0.3, and we've got this very nice mix between. In today's day and age, you probably want to use clear coat for that, but we don't need to because that's going to only overcomplicate the whole process. And since I said that we're going to be using this 3 times, I'm going to copy this material 3 times. One for the top part, the second for the orange part, and the third one for the black elements. So this is going to be the white element at the top, so let's make sure that it's going to be closer to white, and also our orange, red, or whatever color we're going to decide upon. So in this case, I'm going to try to go for eye-watering orange, so it's going to be nice and very vibrant. I can use the same color for the umbrella because why not, but umbrella is going to need one more action in a second. So let's add the white part to our object because that's pretty much going to change the entire element object as we go. Also, the whole staircase, due to the fact that it's made out of metal, at least this is how I imagined it, is going to be super easy because that's going to be the same material that goes for the beams. Okay, that part and that part. Perfecto. And now we're going to just apply that material to our objects. So let's go ahead and just click on Assign Material to Selection. With that, we can go back to our main view and start rendering. If I'm going to now be not mistaken, everything is still going to be white. Why? Because we haven't yet assigned all the materials. So let's go ahead and assign the, turn off the material override. So turn it off. Okay, I forgot to also change the studio color, so let's change the background color to something a little bit different. Also, the ground object needs some kind of material, so let's change this purple to our black that we've created because I want this to be super simple. I don't want to overcomplicate the process by adding some kind of materials that aren't really that necessary in the whole process. So for the studio and for the backdrop, really, I'm going to go ahead and add a very similar white-ish color, but I just did it for a different object because I didn't reselect. So one more second, let's select the background. Now, since we've got the background, we're going to add the color, white-ish. Thank you. So now we're cooking. How about we also get a little bit lower exposure still? Okay, you might have noticed that all of my image is a little bit orange-ish and we're not especially loving that. So how about we change this a little bit? First of all, I'm going to select my sun in this scene and change its input from realistic to direct input. That's going to allow me to directly control what kind of color we're going to achieve using that sun. And that's going to be the simplest change ever. So let's go ahead and just simply select our sun object. That's it. We're going to make sure to change the input from realistic to direct input. That way we're going to be met with very simple color. Let's change it to fully white, so it's going to be more neutral. Only now our sky is going to create some kind of environment color. We could desaturate some of our colors, but in that case we're going to lose some of it. So instead I'm going to add a bit of the contrast. So we're going to get sharper colors. Also, since it's creative work, I'm also going to consider adding 0.5 to saturation. This is really going to make this all of the colors a little bit more juicier, which is exactly what we need in this case. So how about we change the top for our the flaps, let's say. So what material do we need? You've guessed it, Corona physical material. But this Corona physical material is not going to be like the others, because we're going to be adding two separate colors to it. Because we could use multi-sub object level material, but that's going to produce a problem, because I'm going to have two separate materials where if I want to change anything about any part of my object, I'm going to need to go into each individual part of that material or object. So how about we use a different method, which is entirely going to have the same effect, but it's going to be slightly easier. We're going to use Corona Multi-Map as our base color. In this case, I'm going to go for two colors. One is going to be white-ish, which is going to be closer to that, maybe slightly lower. Okay, and that second color is going to be red-ish. So again, we're going to make it more vibrant, a little bit darker. I kind of like it. Change the item count to 2, so we're going to be only using 2 colors at a time. And let's continue. Hello, Benjamin! Nice to have you. I fixed them after your notes. I'm gonna re-render soon. Okay. I know it's not focused. Okay, hello, Mike. Hi. Hello, team RNK. What kind of team is that? Anvil Visual Craft. Okay, so cool. Hello from Kenya. So cool, guys. I am so humbled to hear that all of you are coming from all around the world. Really amazing. Thank you for that. You really made my day. So let's continue. Let's select all of those floppity flops and let's attach them together, because we're going to be applying material IDs to them. I could just be lazy about it and just, well, do it the other way, but we're going to do it this way. So set ID 1. Everything is now ID 1, and we're going to be deselecting what we don't need in this case, or we're just going to select one part and add a quick material to it. So what do we do? How do we do it? First of all, we're going to just select one part at the bottom. So if I'm later going to press grow, which is going to be here, it's going to grow out of proportion. So that's a little bit too much. So how about we just select the bottom, go to grow, and this is going to be enough, because now the turbo smooth, when it kicks in, it's going to keep this a little bit too far. So if I'm going to select this part as well, it's going to create this very nasty looking element. So how do we work, or how do we combat that? Well, the simplest option would be to just add one more loop that's going to protect this color, and this way, if I'm going to select those polygons that I had a second ago, and then do that one grow around here if I need to, it's going to be it's not going to be noticeable. Oh, by the way, I need to connect this in the middle to make it happen, because otherwise we're not going to get what I'm talking about. So that's what we need to do. So there's a little bit of work ahead of me, so let's fix it, because that's not going to take a long time. So, but we're going to actually copy those flaps instead of adding it on all 4 at the same time. So we're going to fix it real fast, because we can. I should have done the material IDs prior, but this is just the mistakes you will be making when you will be doing online classes for a live audience. So be prepared for that. Let's delete those parts, because we're going to be copying this one a couple of times. And now let's select what we need. So what I need is every second part of that. So let's go ahead and do it. Okay, now we grow, and we have everything we need because every part is selected. We're going to set the material ID to 2. This way, the object is going to have the right material on it. How do we check if it does? Let's just make sure to select it. Perfecto. Okay, so how about we just simply apply our material? Because it's extremely simple, it's going to be nice and easy to work with. Also, I need to add a little bit of better roughness, so it's going to be nice and silky. Let's just start rendering this to see how it works. Okay, I messed up the IDs somehow, so what's going on? No, I didn't mess up the IDs. I didn't change the multi-map into be controlled by the material IDs. So Let's zoom in on our object. So Scotty enhance. Let's click on it. You cannot do it in 2D pan zoom mode. So let's, in the orthographic. So now this kind of looks okay, but this is not what we came here for. Let's change this to material ID. So face material ID, and that way we're going to have two colors. We need to swap them because why not? And now we're going to have the perfect setup. No instance changing, turbo smooth, and we've got what we came here for. So 2 iterations was enough. I just need to copy this for the third time a couple of times. So let's go ahead and copy it. Okay. Hi. Inventory visualization failed. Is it important to learn AutoCAD? I would say that AutoCAD is really helpful, but right now most of the companies are trying to get away from strict AutoCAD only. So if you plan on let's say starting your professional work as an architect, consider knowing AutoCAD, but do not focus on it as the only tool, because right now ArchiCAD, Revit, those are the programs that everybody asks about. And you will be working a lot with those files, because creating a 3D model like I am doing right now within the Autodesk Revit is going to be one of those very nice journeys where you're going to have easier time because it's going to be faster. Now let's see it for the last time. Perfecto, and now we've got everything. Although we need to still balance out a little bit of the lighting and add a few additional lights inside and just additional light. I'm going to show you a quick trick that I like using with studios like the one we've built. I always create a small sphere or other type of light. Typically it's going to be a sphere just for the sake of adding additional light at the background. So that's exactly where I'm going to place this object. So we're going to place it somewhere behind our main body. So let's place it here. Let's make sure that it's going to be invisible directly so we cannot see it. It doesn't occlude other lights, and we don't really want to be we don't want this object to be visible in refractions. So this way, once I start rendering this object, you're going to notice that, well, we cannot see anything. That's due to the fact that at the moment this light is very weak. But if I'm going to make this compete versus the sun, we can see that not only we're getting really nice reflection around here, a lot of softness in the shadows, and it's looking good. So let's increase the radius a little bit, lower the amount it produces, well, not to 0, come on, but 50 is going to be fine. Let's go for 100, 500. And look what happens to this shadow, to those reflections. We're getting really nice reflections on top of every piece of furniture. It really works marvelously. Let's just zoom in on that for a second, because that's going to be very helpful to see how it works. So the reflections are getting more and more refined or more interesting thanks to the fact that we've got that one element, and thanks to this very simple trick, we're getting so much detail in our image. It just pops. It's something that you're going to enjoy even more if you're going to focus on this element even for a little bit longer. Okay, so another trick that I want you to consider, or this is not a trick, this is just a solution. Another option that you can go for is corona around edges, especially for materials, for metals and some kind of detail that you want to add in here. So let's go ahead and first of all increase the base roughness for the orange, because I want to see more of that damagey type of material. So let's go lower in our base roughness. Let's go for 50. Okay, now we can see that there's a little bit of that extra shine going on. It's not enough yet, but let's go ahead and now add the bump. Whenever you will be using corona around edges, please remember that corona around edges adds a little bit of chamfers on top of your objects. Because this object is big, I'm going to go ahead and add 3 centimeters, but this is a lot, way too much. Let's go for 2. This looks fine. Increase the sample amount to 16. This is just for my own amusement, and that's not something necessary. But now let's look at this object at different angles. You can see that comparing the two, you can see that this one has very nice reflection. It grabs a little bit more light in the corners, and especially here you can see that there's a lot more detail going on, especially in those more important parts. Okay, just since we've seen it, 1 centimeter goes in, we're going to go for our base bump for the white material as well. So base bump in here. Also for the black material, because why not? Because it's going to just enhance it. Base bump, and we've got those nice round edges on every corner. It just grabs more reflection. But speaking of more reflection, I kind of feel like we need one more reflection, especially to counter our current reflection, or let's say our current boring left part. So to do that, I'm going to copy my fake light that we already have selected. Let's just copy it. Change this light into a disc type. Look at that reflection. Wow, I actually like it. I like it. So we're going to do 2 lights. Rectangle. No, it's going to be disc. And now I'm going to show you something that a lot of you are going to appreciate quite a lot. So we're going to go to align, go to highlight, and align by highlight. So this way, if I place this object, we're going to have exactly the reflection I would want it and need it in this area. Let's lower the power of this light to something more reasonable, and we're going to just move it around and probably align it even further to have even more finer reflections at the corners. Okay, so now we've got a very nice rim reflection that wasn't here before. Okay, so let's move it a little bit to the left. So this is not what I wanted to do. Let's copy it, shift and drag. Okay, sometimes my shift doesn't register when I'm rendering, so this is due to the fact that I'm also streaming and there's a lot of stuff going on my computer. So now let's enlarge this viewport. Let's make sure to also start interactive, and this is going to be our final touch to this for this image. Okay, so let's make sure to do the same thing, but in the highlight, but for this part we want to place it, and look at that. We've got this beautiful highlight showing on our black areas. To make it happen or make it a little bit stronger, I'm going to calculate or see how much power I need for this element to just go ahead and create a light mix. I wanted this to working with 3ds Max from home in my cabin on top of a mountain. That's what I wanted to have in my case. Interior visualization failed. Okay, Blender or 2ds Max, which is now better? What is your workflow, Mike? You can see kind of my workflow right now because I'm sharing what I typically do when I'm doing some kind of work. And yes, this is also my work. I sometimes have, let's say, simple tasks like this one to work with. So now let's check what kind of lights do we have in here. So light number 1. Perfecto. Light number 3, it's so weak that we need to kind of make it stronger, so it's going to be more visible in our reflection. 3 times, 4 times. Okay, from what I can see, I don't like the way this material that I've created behaves on this specific object. So we're actually going to dial this back down, and we're going to go to physical material and change the amount of my how's it called, base roughness. So let's go for 15 in this case, 10. Okay, also maybe increase the reflectability a little bit by going for IOR 2, so it's going to be nice and shiny. It's not metallic shiny, but it's still going to look better. I'm going to do the same for the metal, the black part, because I think it's going to need it. So let's go ahead and change the roughness to 2 actually for this one. And since we're on the topic, look how much more interesting it looks like now in this reflection. And we're going to go for 15 for that part, because we want this to have subtle results. And now with all of the lights together, let's turn them on. Okay, perfecto, perfecto, and perfecto. Kinda overexposed, so we can lower the exposition of our main light, which is our environment, but this is absolutely unnecessary at this moment, because why would we? We don't need to do it, so if we don't, let's not. Let's wait for it to load for a little bit longer, okay, and delete this for our studio. Come on. Now delete this part, and yeah, I kind of also hate the fact that right now our teapot is really not being properly lit. Okay, so we're going to do something about it. We can do the same thing with the light, so we can move it wherever we want and just add the highlight. I'm actually going to lose that one highlight and just add it here. So we're okay, so it's the material that's acting up. Let's just add our material then. Now, that's not what I wanted. Wait a second. Let's see if I haven't messed up something in the environment. I actually turned off the environment almost entirely. That is why it's so dark. Now it makes sense. Okay, so why don't you use V-Ray? I don't use V-Ray because Corona is just easier. It's simpler, it's faster to understand. It's just the software that I like more. It's not that it's superior, it's just my preference. And on top of that, I believe that Corona also delivers a little bit more realistic results, at least from my standpoint. So that will be why I am using Corona over V-Ray. The last thing is to go to LUTs and choose your Instagram filter. So we're just going to go ahead and check if we have anything that works for us. Typically, you want to keep in mind that whatever type of a filter or a special effect you're going to be using on top of your image, LUTs aren't designed to be used 100% of the time. I mean, you're supposed to be using them with a pinch of salt, with a little bit of degree, and not fully overriding everything in your image. Okay, I like this thing. Now, I kind of think that my background needs to be slightly darker to fill this image to really complete it. And we're just going to make it darker. So the building is actually better lit. I mean, it's standing out a little bit more. And now we've got it. Okay, not really. Let's change this to 0.4. Got it. Now, this is it. This is the final result. We could go ahead and play a little bit more with the saturation of our image to make it even more juicier, which actually works really fine, but I believe this was enough. Hello from Egyptian. Love you, Mike. Thank you, Mohammed. It's really appreciated to get a little bit of love from you guys. So this is the final result. Make sure to work your way through all of the steps. If you want to follow along, make sure to read through our description, because the link is hidden at the very bottom. Oops, I said it. So yes, you can see all the floor plans that I was using at the very beginning of our video. So if you want to have the exactly same results that I did, so the original actually was almost the same. I've kind of changed a few things along the way, but it's basically the same thing. Yeah, I forgot about those elements here and here, and the colors are slightly different, but it's all about just eyeballing it. So I'm not going to cry about that, because the end result looks very familiar, and this is what we wanted to create anyway. So this is it for this tutorial. Thank you very much for your attention, guys. To show a little bit of appreciation, please make sure to leave a like, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Also, ring the notification bells, because we're creating this kind of videos for you, and to also reach a little bit broader audience. So as a token of, let's say, a tip, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, even if it's only good work. It's going to tremendously help us, and it really makes my day to read the comments and have a little bit of conversation with you guys, because we do talk in the comments. On top of that, remember to also visit our social media, that's Vizacademy UK, and you can like all the posts by our students because those are amazing. And the most important part is that we are still recruiting for our September. To be honest, there's only 2 or 3 spots left. Actually, probably after this webinar, it's going to be only 1 spot left. So if you want to join our training, make sure to do it right now, because you might be missing out on something amazing. Our training is taking 7 weeks, and you're going to be able to render something realistic in less than that. So what I mean is, after 4 weeks of our support videos and webinars, you're going to be able to create photorealistic visualizations just like those of my students, like Ala, Bianca, Javiera, also way more students that I cannot even name now, and I apologize for that, because there's a lot of you guys, and I don't really comprehend how we could have so many students so far. It's really amazing too, and I'm really thankful that you joined in. Okay, so going back to the main topic, please check out the available dates, sign up for our training, and this is it. Thank you very much for your attention yet again. Let's visit 3ds Max for the last time to see our end result. Render this for a couple of seconds, and let's make it slightly brighter then. Okay, even brighter. Nope, that's too much. Okay, I love it. Now, this is it for today. Thank you very much for your attention. See you next time. Bye-bye. Oh, I need to click it here. Bye.